live on Facebook? I was just waiting for that.
Oh,
there it is.
Wonderful.
We are live on Facebook.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all so much for joining us here tonight. I at least am broadcasting live from Forestville for this Forestville Town Hall, and really excited to talk about a few topics of community concern. I actually want to start off with an apology, which is that there has been a lot of really exciting momentum for a number of projects in Forestville that unfortunately have been sidelined over the past, many months by a series of disasters. It feels like we can't quite get out of the flood, fire, pandemic, disaster loop. And so a lot of the things that we are talking to you about today, I am so excited to actually lean back in and start this moving forward again. Things like the Quarry mitigation funds and the great improvements that we can make to our downtown and our roads and our walkability and our bikeability in the community. So again, my apologies for us not being able to move this forward as quickly as I would like, but I promise that you have our attention and our efforts are all going to be rowing in the same direction, trying to get some of these projects moving forward in the near future. With that, speaking of topics of community concern surrounding Forestville, I would be remiss without acknowledging the conversations that are happening with the West Sonoma County High School District regarding campus consolidation, which could potentially lead to the closure of either Annalee or El Molino and or Laguna campuses. This is a really critical topic for all of our students and also for all of our residents in Forestville, particularly if El Molino wound up being the campus that was chosen for closure. So I would strongly encourage everyone to go and visit the high school district website to follow along with their board meetings and to become part of the conversation. It's really critical to have your voice heard. This process has been moving very quickly, and I think it's really important that we have an opportunity to consider the long-term ramifications of any of these kinds of decisions, which quite frankly have the potential impact to just affect the future generations of Forestville and all of West County, since so many of our Lower Russian River and North Coast students do wind up going to El Molino. So with that, I am excited to hand it over to Bert Whitaker and from Regional Parks and Trish Pacenti from Transportation and Public Works to talk a little bit about sort of the Quarry mitigation funds projects, as well as how we're doing on the West County Trail.
Great, thank you, Supervisor Hopkins. And Bert Whitaker, the director over here at Sonoma County Regional Parks. It's great to have you all this evening. Thanks for jumping on. So the Quarry mitigation funds projects, so really those projects that from the quarry impact where there would be direct impacts on various roadways and bicycle and pedestrian circulation. So Regional Parks has two projects, one that is in motion and one that is in the future. We're very pleased that the West County Trail is closer than ever to connecting to the Forestville Square. If you've been out there lately, you would have seen about 2 weeks ago, the piers got drilled. And in the last week or so, the concrete is being poured to develop that boardwalk. And it is kind of that funky little walk through the bramble right now. I'm looking forward to having a much safer and appropriate connection. Expect that to be wrapped up hopefully in the next month or so. And interesting in that little wetland area, amazing how long it took for it to dry out this year, especially with the low water conditions we've had over the last year. So pleased to see that coming into fruition. And really, the other project that will come in the future with these quarry mitigation funds is a 0.5 mile connection from the existing terminus of the West County Trail down to Davis Road and the Forestville Youth Park. And that would be a class 1 extension, so a dedicated, separated bikeway. And it is basically, it is very preliminary. It is not yet in the design phase that engineer on board, and we're working to wrap up the West County Trail connection, and then we'll be beginning work on this next phase to continue that trail's journey down into the Forestville community. So those are the two that we've got going on, and I will pass over to Trish Pacenti, the Deputy Director over Transportation and Public Works, to talk a little bit about some of the TPW projects. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Bert. So TPW has a list of projects with associated funds, and I'll go through them with you. We have a total of $3.664 million for these various projects. The first project we have is the Mirabelle Shoulder work. We've got the Forestville pedestrian and bike circulation, Forestville crosswalk visibility, the Forestville bypass, the Highway 116 at Mirabelle, and Highway 116 at Covey intersection, and the River Road at Mirabelle intersection. At this point, again, as Supervisor Hopkins mentioned, we've been in a cycle of disasters over the last few years, but we have started, or we're currently working on the 116 at Covey. We're in the design phase for that project right there, and we're probably looking at 12 to 18 months to get that project completed. And then we will continue to work on the projects. That's pretty much our update of our balance of our funds as of October 2020.
Elise, you're on mute.
You can see the lips moving, huh? Is there any description on some of those projects that you can give us so that we'll understand a little bit more aside from the names?
You know, Johannes is hoping to join us
Sorry to
shortly.
put you on the spot.
Pardon me?
Sorry to put you on the spot.
Oh, no, that's fine. I'm like I said, Johannes is hoping to join us. He's got another Zoom meeting he's wrapping up and should be able to join us and go into more details on each of the projects. I do know the one project that we're working on right now at Highway 116 is a project where it's not a very safe intersection the way the crosswalks are set up, and we want to really redesign how the crosswalks work. There's a potential of moving. There's a right turning lane, which we may take out, or we may just shift it over so that we could have a much safer intersection than exists today. So I know that's a big piece of it is restriping, but it's really re-looking at the whole intersection and seeing how we make it safer.
That's great, thank you.
And just a reminder from folks who may have participated back when we could actually all gather together in a room in person and have an old-fashioned town hall, that the way that we decided to prioritize these projects, because we don't have enough money to do all of the different things, but it was through that town hall process that we had multiple times where folks were able to cast their votes on which the priorities were. And what really rose to the top was a concern around bicycle and pedestrian safety in the downtown core of Forestville. So we're trying to make sure that we're addressing that. And Mirabelle Shoulders also scored very high. So looking at trying to make that connection between downtown and ultimately, between Sebastopol, because West County Trail runs all the way down there, and the Forestville Youth Park. So that's how some of those things were prioritized. Elise, do we want to go ahead and see if there are any questions in the Q&A or just for these folks, and then we can kind of take questions by presentation, unless there's anything else that you would like to add, Trish or Bert?
Absolutely. I don't see any questions in the chat. Do you see any on the Forestville, Leo? I mean, on the Facebook?
I don't. We should give people just a moment. If you have any questions, you're free to enter it into the Q&A within Zoom, or I'm also monitoring Facebook, so you can go ahead and enter your comment there.
It looks like Vesta has something.
Well,
Can I speak? Okay. Are there places where we can look at the drawings of the intersection at Covey and 116? It was a number of years ago when we asked Caltrans to shift the crosswalk that went from the service station to Cars Drive-In because it was on the other side of the hill and people couldn't see it. So we moved it up to where it goes from the Forestville Club to the whatever you want to call the building that it is, that's for Oddfellows building, where it was at the crest of the hill. Do you have drawings so we can see what the shifts are that you're proposing?
That's exactly what we're working on right now. So, and I do believe when we get a draft, we'd be happy to share it with whoever in the community would be interested in taking a look. We could probably post it, but definitely get word out to this group when we have the design ready.
Okay, because the two entities that would be interested in it would be the Lower River MAC. So us Forestvilleans would want to present it, and then 95436.org, the Forestville Planning Association. So if and the Forestville Chamber of Commerce, that would be logical as well. So if we could all get those drawings and plans so we could review them, that would be spectacular. Thank you.
Okay.
And I see a question from Lucy asking us to expound on the bicycle pedestrian project. Exactly what area are you talking about? And what came out of those town hall meetings was really a desire to focus on basically that rectangle of 116, Mirabelle, Covey, and then Davis, and kind of connecting the downtown to the high school to the youth park, and trying to make sure that there was, continuity in terms of an ability to walk on sidewalks, or at least, bike on a shoulder, or just have more safety going around that corridor. That was identified as one of the priorities. So we don't actually have drawings for that yet. That's why we're launching into this engineering and design phase. And once we do have those, we will absolutely have another town hall and share all of those visuals and give a presentation, and then solicit any feedback or concerns at that point in time. And Vesta, I really appreciate you bringing up the history of that particular intersection. And so, hopefully we can learn and keep improving that intersection with each iteration of the crosswalk there. And then I also see a question from Joni saying, will we be able to access any of the funds for the town square project, specifically the restrooms? So the challenge with these funds is that they were set aside for quarry impact mitigation. And there were, gosh, I can't remember if it was 7 or 9 different buckets that they were all split up into with a very defined purpose. And so we've kind of stretched it as far as the attorneys are comfortable stretching it within the confines of how we're able to spend that money, but we can't really utilize it for town square project or restrooms. But we continue to actively investigate the possibility of ag and open space funds. I have repeatedly requested an adjustment on the matching grant percentage to give a little bit more money to unincorporated communities, because we don't have city governments that can then match funds. So hopefully we can still continue to partner with FPA, and look forward to following up with Michael on that for the next part of the presentation. Leo, do you see anything on Facebook?
I do.
And I see Michael might want to jump in.
There's a related question to what you were addressing earlier. I think it came in right before you started talking about it. From Melissa Tarzia, she's asking, any plans for reducing the speed of traffic on Mirabelle? Also curious to know what is being done to make the 116 Mirabelle intersection safer. Thank you. So I know you were saying that the plans are still under development, but if somebody wants to speak to whether there's an ability to manage the speed issue or anything else on that.
Trish, I would leave the design question to you, but I can say that I've noted, on Covey right now, there's one of the flashing signs that I think, speaking personally, it's been very effective when I'm driving on Covey Road. And so, that's something that we can work with CHP and with TPW to put up one of those signs to try to slow down traffic. And it really, those things, they might not be there for that long, but they really do have an impact in terms of behavior, at least for a number of months, and then you can always bring them back. But Trish, I would leave the other question to you.
And can you repeat the other part of the question?
Yeah, the question was any plans for reducing the speed of traffic on Mirabelle? Also curious to know what is being done to make the 116 Mirabelle intersection safer. Thank you. And then I would just even add one more. I think Lucy just added a question that I believe is also related to this intersection. Would that include a sidewalk along the west side of the street? So there's some questions about the design and how we're making it safer for pedestrians.
Okay. Again, I don't think we don't have specific plans in place right now, but there definitely is a project on our list at Mirabelle and the intersection there. And again, when we get to the point that we are designing the area, we will definitely share it with the group and get input.
Michael, go ahead, you've been waiting.
Yeah, thank you. A question maybe to both Trish and Linda, and that is, we in the FPA have always thought that the sidewalk that would run parallel to the front of the park along 116 would definitely be a safety issue in line with the original intent of the quarry funds. And I'm wondering, one, Trish, whether there is anything in that. I don't think there is in what you just ran through in terms of projects. And Linda, do your lawyers and legal advice think that that could be part of or fit in with the quarry fund's original intent?
Absolutely, and we have had conversations about, what is the overall vision and design for that downtown, core area. So that's definitely something we can include as part of our, basically we need to get an engineer, and a design expert to actually come up with this, and then also to price it out so we can figure out exactly what we can afford. We may have a vision that we only are able to embark upon or check off, a certain number of boxes, but I would love to have the entire vision, and then over time, hopefully we can continue to inch towards, that complete streets model in Forestville.
Okay, good, thank you.
Before Vesta goes, there's a related question in the Q&A from Matt McDermott. How much money from the funds have been approved for the county to provide design options? Do we have a line item in the budget for that specifically?
What I have just a total budget amount, so I don't have it split out between design and construction at this point.
Okay. So it looks like, Jacque, you have your hand up, and I know Vesta did as well.
Yeah.
Jacque, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, hi, thank you. You mentioned, Trish, the bypass, the Forestville bypass I thought that was not a project that we were working on anymore.
And I saw that in some notes that I was looking at this afternoon too. My guess is that this was money that had been set aside for that project. And now that we don't have enough to do the entire project, I'm assuming, and I would need to verify this with Johannes, that, the funds could be reassigned, to another use, I would assume.
Okay.
Yes, so, and yeah, I can jump in on that. So that was actually a step that we took, I think it was last year, where we legally reopened up the sort of use permit that allowed us to then move the money around. So that has been officially abandoned as a project, but we're able to pull on the funds from that pot in order to fund the downtown improvements. So, and it looks like I just got a text from Johannes. He's asking to be promoted to participant, and he's signed on. So if he wanted to give an update, that would be a perfect time. There we go. Looks like he's already there. So Johannes, I don't know if you want to jump in and provide a little bit more, detail in terms of the status update and how you see us going forward. And thank you so much for jumping onto the meeting.
Yeah, thank you, Supervisor Hopkins. I apologize. We had 3 supervisors that scheduled meetings at the same time, so we're trying to share the information. So Quarry funds, Supervisor Hopkins, myself, and County Council worked to be able to free the funding, if you will, to complete some of the projects that were more oriented towards what the community wanted. And of the $3.66 million, I think about $765,000 have been allocated to parks for a pedestrian project. The rest of the project, the funding is going to be for some pedestrian improvements within the community that we polled the community. I remember we went to the school, and then some improvements on Covey. I don't know if Trish already gave you an update on that. Some safety improvements on Covey Road, and mainly some pedestrian updates, and then some improvements to Mirabelle, including some of the vaults that I remember they're noisy, and we were going to wall them or come up with some kind of fix for the vaults. And I think that's it. So theoretically, we have a lot of flexibility on what we can do with the funding.
And were there any other questions? I want to acknowledge we do have a lot to cover tonight. We still have a number of more presentations. So Vesta? And do we have any more in the chat? I want to make sure that we're getting, it looks like Matt asked how much is in the budget, and is that all from the Quarry funds? We did answer that question. Johannes just did. Vesta?
And Supervisor Hopkins, the Mirabelle roundabout, that project, I think for all intent and purposes is dead. We still had an option for a traffic signal, but we're not pursuing that at the time. I think the estimated cost of the project now is about 20 million. And I don't think there's an appetite for that from the community. So we're not currently pursuing anything on that project.
Vesta, do you still have a question before we jump into the next presentation?
It's not a question. It's just that we all know what the quarry mitigation funds are, but it's been such a long time since it was established that a brief rundown of where the money comes from and what it was intended to do, I think would help people who don't know about it. They really, I mean, it's been a long time since that was established. Where did the money come from and what is it supposed to be used for? Just as brief as possible.
So the money came from mitigation from the quarries in Forestville, and it's specific for the area. And let me read some of what the funding is for. There's about $1 million for Mirabelle Shoulders. There's about $14,000 for Forestville pedestrian bike circulation. There's about $14,000 for crosswalk visibility. There used to be the $1 million for the Forestville bypass. There's another $1 million for the 116 intersection. There's $69,000 for the Covey intersection, and there's a River Road and Mirabelle intersection for $343,000. Those roughly add up to 366. The total is $3,664,149. Some of the funding have been allocated for the new project now for parks, and some will be allocated for the pedestrian improvements that we're going to be doing in Covey and throughout the area. Does that answer your question, Vesta?
Yeah, I think I was there when it was established, so I know what it is, but a lot of people don't know what it is. And that's why I wanted to get a little rundown that the money came from the quarries. They pay for it, and it's to mitigate the impacts of the quarries on Forestville.
Yes, and it's restricted funding, that it cannot be used anywhere else in the county, only within that area.
Thank you.
Linda, before we close out this item, can I just read off the last two questions that are here from written format? So Matt McDermott had a follow-on question. He had previously asked about the budget for the design, and he's just asking now, how much is the budget, and is that all from the quarry funds? So I believe that was specifically the 116 and Mirabelle project. He also added another question here. It says, my question was regarding dollar amount for the project planning and design. Trish had stated that they only have the budget. Does this mean that dollar amount for the planning and engineering is not currently limited? So I think it's a question about sort of how we budget by phase or not. And then the other question was just circling back, Johannes, you may have an answer. Will Mirabelle get sidewalks? Or we were saying that it was pending design earlier, but you may have.
Right. And you know, one thing I must say, we have been working on these projects, and we were engaged probably about 1.5 years ago. We met with the community. We were going to, I'm going to start these projects. And then we had hit with fire, flood, fire, and we've had to scale back, but we have the resources. And now in 2021, we have 2 new engineers, and I promised to Supervisor Hopkins, the first engineer we hire, I think she starts on the 15th of this month. It's going to be design Covey intersection and the improvement for Forestville, just so we can get this done and hopefully put that money to good use.
One other thing that I do want to mention is that voters did just approve, Measure DD, which was the Measure M 2.0, which was the roads measure. And I was pretty vocally critical of the fact that Measure M didn't really fund very much projects in West County. And so, there's an opportunity to leverage the money that we have for the quarry mitigation funds to actually do much more, if we are able to present a compelling project to my transportation authority. And one of the things that they did include and that I fought really hard for in that measure was looking at complete streets and, walkable and bikeable projects. And so if we're looking, at that kind of criteria, our project should be very competitive. So hopefully we can leverage some of our funding and make it go even further. Leo, did that you feel like answer all the questions and we don't have any other ones?
Jason's a host, and he's going to try to make me co-host, I believe, but there is a hand raised, I guess. I don't know what format you want to use. Do you want to, I guess it's really the Forestville folks. Do you want to allow people to ask questions through that format? And if so, Jason, can you recognize that person if they do want that?
We can also take more questions at the end if we want to keep the agenda going.
I'm open to whatever format. I can now recognize the person, or we could move forward. I know someone else did suggest that we do the presentations before questions, but I understand people probably want it both ways, so it's hard to make everyone happy.
Why don't we go ahead and recognize that person, and then maybe the next question, and we can move forward with the next presentation.
Okay, so Madeline Solomon, I've allowed you to speak, so you should be able to unmute yourself and go ahead. Madeline, I think you need to do the unmuting. I'm not able to do it.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to unmute, and I didn't mean to ask a question. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's fine. Then we can move forward. Thanks, Madeline.
No worries. I did see one actually other question sneak in under the line, which was, are there plans to make Mirabelle and River roads safer? That is actually a part of the project list. However, it would be a much more expensive project. So I think that would be probably a conversation between TPW and SCTA to see if there might be supplemental funding. Johannes, do you have anything that you want to comment on that one?
Well, by safer, Supervisor Hopkins, thanks you for asking me. Do we mean, you know, improvements, physical improvements to try to slow down traffic, or a separate path of travel? So we'd like to be engaged in that conversation and see what kind of improvements, if it's traffic calming devices, or how we can make it safer. I know by the school it's 25 miles per hour, but we would definitely be open to reducing speeds and making it safer with the traffic, truck traffic.
Great. So Keith, if you want to follow up with us, if you have ideas, would love to have that conversation. I know that actually did score not quite as high as the bicycle and pedestrian improvements when we had the town halls previously, but there was interest in improving that intersection, recognizing that it is a very dangerous intersection. We have had some accidents there. Mm-hmm. So with that, Elise, I don't know if you want to jump in and introduce our next presenters.
I'm excited for us to be coming close to the edge of fire season, but in the meantime, getting ready for the end of this one and the beginning of the next one. Sam Wallace is going to talk. He's with our Department of Emergency Management. He's going to talk about alerts and evacuations. And then Dave Franceschi is going to touch on COPE groups and vegetation management in Forestville. Sam, take it away.
Oh, well, thank you both to Supervisor Hopkins and to you, Elise, for allowing me to talk for a little bit. I'll try and keep my remarks a little brief. This is a subject that I'm very passionate on, and I can literally talk for hours if need be. Just ask my wife. But I was asked to focus on two major things, and one of them is evacuations, and specifically the evacuation map, which hopefully all of you are kind of aware of. And with your kind permission, I'm going to attempt to share my screen, and that way maybe we can show things here. And hopefully I will be showing, hopefully you all see the map of the area.
Mm-hmm. You see the map now.
Okay, great. So first of all, a little bit background about this map. We recognized a while ago that we needed to have a consolidated evacuation map of the county so that we can really facilitate evacuations instead of doing it kind of in the ad hoc way that we had to do it both in the Nuns Tubbs fire and then later on in the Kincaid fire. The Sheriff's Department, which is actually the ones responsible for evacuation, we support them. They started this project several months ago. It's a lot more complex of a project than most people understand. That we have to make sure that we're not taking away from any public safety agencies or bisecting any public safety agencies' jurisdictions. So there's a lot of getting down on the ground with local agencies and making sure that everybody is in agreement of what those zones should look like. So it wasn't quite ready for prime time when the Walbridge fire and the Lightning Complex fires happened. That one, quite frankly, happened earlier in the fire season than we expected. So it was kind of pressed into service at that point, and it wasn't quite ready. We learned a lot of lessons from that, but unfortunately, we had the glass fire that came in right behind that, so we weren't in a position to make any major modifications. But we've learned a lot of things about how to do this a little better. There are going to be a couple of fairly minor modifications made on the map. It is one of those things, like all good democracies, if nobody is happy, then we've probably got the best possible map. And so I hear a lot of people say, well, I think this should be there. And there's somebody on the other side of the line saying, well, I think the line should be over there. Unfortunately, we're just going to have to kind of go with what we have, although I think there will be some incremental modifications as we go on. The map is right now available on socoemergency.org. If you go in there and work your way down into the glass fire, which is where I find it here, it'll have a more prominent place once the final version is done. We're also going to make it more visually understandable to people that log in. There is already a place where you can go ahead and type in your address, find out what your zone is. And what I would ask is, once we get into next fire season, check and make sure that your zone hasn't changed. It probably won't, but there may be some minor modifications, and better safe than sorry. We're also going to be doing a public outreach campaign so that people do know what their zones are, including we're hoping to get PG&E to put your zone onto your electric bill so that most people will be able to do it. We're also going to highlight some of the visibility aspects of it. I know it was difficult, got a lot of feedback on that. When people go into the map, they see a sea of green. They don't necessarily know where the boundaries are. In fact, if you look at it right here, unless you're eagle-eyed, and I'm not, you can't very well make out the boundaries. We're going to come up with a better way to make that more visible to anybody who's just looking at it. We're also going to come up with a better way of quickly identifying and having those zones up, so as the situation develops, that'll be easier to do. In addition to that, this is only the beginning. The next step beyond this is once we know what those final zones are going to be, we're going to be having evacuation routes put on here, so that if you are in a specific zone, if you're in 4 Bravo 1 or 4B1, we're going to have that highlighted in here so that you know what your primary and your secondary and hopefully your tertiary routes are out of there. And that way, if we put out an emergency alert, and let's just say one of those routes is closed for whatever reason, we're able to advise the public not to take that evacuation route, or alternatively, if we want them to take a specific one, we can tell them that. So that's in the future. Not too far in the future, I might add. Another thing that's been brought up by some people is that it's very difficult to understand where you are unless you've happened to have looked on the map, especially if we call you at 2 in the morning and say, hey, zone 4B1, get out of there. Most people, if they don't know their zone, of course, in our messaging, what we very often try and do is say between this road and the Russian River, that can be difficult for people to comprehend. So one of the recommendations that the sheriff is looking at is, instead of having like an alphanumeric designator, that we actually have a name. So for instance, Forestville might be North Forestville and South Forestville. That way people can better conceive of what their location is, rather than just getting a 4D2 and a 4D1. So don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but I guess the bottom line is that we are listening to feedback that we've gotten from the 2 major wildfires that we've had, and both the sheriff and us are looking at ways that we can make this more user-friendly, so everybody is able to get it a little better. So that's about what we have on the evacuation map. There are going to be a few things in there that are kind of invisible. Eventually we'll have the ability to put up icons on where the evacuation shelters will be. We actually have that on another map. I'm hoping to have that on this one. There will be some things for law enforcement agencies for setting up traffic control points to help keep the flow of traffic moving during a disaster, but that'll be kind of invisible to the general public. That's it in a nutshell on the map. We're very excited about this. It helped us a lot. It would have helped us a lot more if it was fully functional before the wildfires struck. But we're hoping that now that we have this, we won't have any more wildfires, so we'll never get a chance to use it again. But if we do, it's going to certainly assist our ability to communicate with anybody. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll just go to the alert and warning portion of it as well. hearing no questions, and of course, maybe at the end of this, I can go into that more. The other question that was asked by the MAC was that to talk a little bit about alert and warning. And of course, this is a huge problem for us, or potentially huge problem for us. Most of you are already familiar with there are significant swaths of West County that even on blue sky days have very poor cell coverage, which makes it very difficult for us to get an emergency alert in there through that system. So our primary method is really using landline, but as everybody knows, if there's a power shutoff, or even if the power goes out due to the actual disaster that's going on, then most phones are no longer the good old, what we call the POTS phones, the plain old telephone system. They're no longer using those a lot out there. There's a lot of voice over internet providers, or even if you do have a traditional phone system, you might have plugged in a handset, so that requires electricity to use. So we're very aware of that, and that's why one of the things we are pushing on right now is to start using the NOAA weather radios as an auxiliary system. We're still kind of working on it. We have used it in the past couple of fires, but we're beginning to push it more and more. The city of Santa Rosa received a grant to get about 12,000 radios that they're going to be distributing to some of their folks. We're going to be looking at doing something like that on a larger scale. We did do it on a smaller scale. I received a grant, and we're in the purchase of processing that grant right now to give NOAA weather radios to persons with that are deaf and with disabilities. So we're going to be, that's kind of our first part to get that out there, but we're going to continue to push that. And they're not that actually that expensive if you haven't gotten one. This is the kind of the standard version that we're using in the county. They cost about $29. You can get them on Amazon. Just make sure you have a battery backup. They plug into the wall, but they also have a battery backup in case the power goes out. And we will be sending out alerts through that system. As a matter of fact, we're kind of proud the National Weather Service and NOAA actually picked Sonoma County, just because we do so much alert and warning, as a test county for a new program in which we're actually able to start the alerting process through the NOAA weather radio using a new computer system, which we did successfully on a test last month. So we're innovating in that area, but unfortunately, there's a lot of serious problems with geography out there. The other thing that we're going to do to mitigate that is that even with the NOAA weather radios, the signal can have difficulties propagating on there. We're looking into coming up with a system where we have radio repeaters that we're able to put in certain communities to boost the signal from the NOAA weather radio and propagate it down to you as well that way. So those are some of the things that we have going on. A lot of work that's going on to try and both be ready for an evacuation and to be able to alert you in the event of an evacuation. I did want to cover one more thing, if I may, is that you're going to be seeing this more and more as well. We're really beginning to push. We can't come up with a plan that covers everybody, but I did want to say, if you do go to socoemergency.org, which is our website, if you come down here to, preparedness and getting ready. I should have had this, speaking of that, I should have been a little ready. We do have a whole series of things here on making a plan and having a go bag ready to go. If you come down here, we have a downloadable, we have a downloadable plan. I'm just going to show it to you, which I have right here. And we're going to be starting to distribute these in many of the communities that are out there. It's just a plan that you can go through, make a decision on what your plan is going to be as far as what you're going to do if you have to shelter in place, if you have to evacuate, what your go bag looks like. It's an excellent resource that we heartily recommend. That way, the more people out there that are prepared, the less problems that we're going to have when the time comes. So that's about it. I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now, and I can turn it over to any questions that are out there. I have a few that I can see in the chat. I can go ahead and start answering those if I can. Okay, so somebody says if we want to buy a NOAA weather radio, do we just type that information into Amazon search bar, or is there a more specific designation? Yeah, if you go into Amazon, you can. The thing that I do tell people that it's important is, my camera's probably not good enough. There's the important thing for your NOAA weather radio is to have the alarm capability. It'll be the public alert, or if it has the SAME designation on that. And what that allows it to do is when it's properly set up, we can actually activate that radio remotely, turn it on. It will have a horrible sounding alarm that'll wake you up. And that's what you need. There are no weather radios that don't have that capability, so you just got to make sure that you have that. If all else fails, this particular model, I don't want to emphasize one, but it's the WR120, the Weather Radio 120 from Midland. That's the one that we use as a standard, but anything that has that same code or public alert would be good enough. I'll put the link in the chat for everything there. And yes, thank you for volunteering to put a repeater on your property. I'm surprised. I've talked about this to a lot of COPE groups, and a substantial number of people have already stepped up to the plate. We have to work out some legal issues with the FCC and some technical issues, but we will be looking for volunteers that would be able to do that. So we thank you for that. Are there any questions that I can't see on the chat that I might be able to answer before turning it over?
Hi there. I'm going to check the Facebook right now. Daryl Paul is asking, is the mapping going to be available for wireless devices? And then there was someone else asking about the type of radio to buy, which you've already clarified. But yeah, that's the main question from Daryl Paul. Will this mapping be available for wireless devices? So can we access the map versus like on the cell phone? I think, Daryl, is that what you're talking about? I believe
yeah, you should be able to do that. We're also going to be working, that's actually a great question. We're also going to be working on a better way that when we do send out an alert, that you should be able to click on a link and actually see that portion of the map that the alert is talking about. That way, nobody's having to think too much. They can just open up their phone and see that, yeah, okay, that's the part of the map. I think that's what Daryl's asking. But Daryl, if it isn't, just call me afterwards, and I'll go into that in more in depth. Any other questions or?
There's one last question that I see that came in through the Q&A from, I think it's Ian Burnett. During the last fires, we received notices to conserve water and stop watering plants outdoors. Were we close to running out of water, or was that an abundance of caution?
I'm actually going to defer. Chief Franceschi, do you want to answer that one? Because I don't really feel qualified to answer that one.
Sure. I can. I'm going to address that in my my speech. So if we can wait, and then I'll address it then.
All right, great. Let's do that. Well, if there's no other questions, then I will go ahead and turn it over to Chief Franceschi.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Franceschi. I'm a captain at the Forestville Fire Department, and I'm standing in for Dave Franceschi tonight, who's out of town. I've been tasked to talk about two items tonight. One of them is vegetation management, and one of them is community preparedness groups. The first one I'll talk about is vegetation management. Sonoma County Board of Supervisors, after the 2017 fire, put in place an ordinance. It's Sonoma County Ordinance 13A, and it sets a guideline for what you should do to prepare your house in case of a wildfire. Studies have shown about 80% of homes that are lost to wildfires could be saved if the homeowners had done some of their homework and provided some defensible space for the firefighters to work with. Our firefighters are trained to kind of triage the houses that we come to and kind of prioritize the ones that have done their homework. It gives us a little bit easier access to the property doesn't put us in much danger. It kind of protects us in a way and makes it safe for us to be there. Going along with the Vegetation Management 13A, I highly recommend taking a look at it. There's a link on our website as well as the county website, and it's a very good resource to look at and kind of has a good guideline and get you a good place to start. Fire Safe Sonoma has also developed a very good program. It's called Ready, Set, Go. And it's a good resource, and you can print it from their website at firesafesonoma.org. A couple of the basic tips are the defensible space around your property. Fire Safe Sonoma has some great suggestions on how to make your home fire resistant, kind of hardening your home to make it less resistant to fire. They say a lot of people like to put mulch around the base of their house within the first 5 feet out from their house. And I mean, that's kind of a place for embers to land and catch right underneath your house on fire. So there's a lot of those vegetation things that we recommend not to do, and Fire Safe Sonoma outlines that in their program. Another thing we recommend is the ladder fuels. Ladder fuels are what make the fire transition from a ground fire to the tops of the trees. So if you're eliminating those fuels between 0 and 6 feet, it helps lessen the chance that the fire is going to raise up into the treetops where we don't want it. Some more suggestions: mow early in the day, as many fires start by sparks from mowing equipment, and never mow on a red flag day. Properly store your firewood and patio furniture. You don't want to have your firewood stacked up right against your house. Local fire departments all over the county have actually been doing these inspections. It's a 13A. They go along 13A. It's a vegetation management inspection. And each year we're tasked with about 200 homes in Forestville that we're in charge of inspecting. This year it's been a little bit difficult with the fire season that we've had to get to all 200 homes, but we're still working on them slowly. I'll talk about the water question now. I know there's probably been talk in past town halls and around the community about leaving sprinklers on your property during your fire. If you're going to evacuate on your roof, leave them running to try to keep everything damp. But during the Wallbridge fire, a small community along the river right here in Forestville, they consumed about over 100,000 gallons of water in one day. They did this by leaving the sprinklers running on the roofs and the properties, and they weren't necessarily under immediate threat, but they thought they were I think they're in an evacuation zone. With them doing that, they completely drained one of the Russian River utility tanks, and had the fire spread to that area, there would have been no water in the area for us to use to protect those homes. So we're recommending don't do sprinklers on your roofs and around your property if you're going to evacuate. Just leave the water off, and we'll use the water when we come into the neighborhood to help protect the homes. And if this is continued to be an issue, the water agency, the Russian River Utilities, has the ability to shut the water off to the homes to prepare to save it for the firefighters. And I'll stop there and take any questions regarding vegetation management if there are any. Looks like Lucy might have her hand up.
Yeah, I do. Thank you, Michael. I typed in, after you guys did inspections up Shumps, I saw some huge local improvements, so people took those seriously, and I was pleased to see that. But Michael, my question is, have we talked about, I'm still thinking about small, just in terms of the canyon I live in, because there's so many canyons, it's a symbol of others. And when trees and stuff just fall down in the canyon where it's not actually somebody's property, are there and Linda may know this, are there any like training, is there any way to tap into like training facility, fire training for like probationers or, you know, the inmates and stuff that do help with vegetation management? Do you know of any programs that are out there that maybe a local neighborhood, like the Champs neighborhood, could tap into and get some help with vegetation management that's not specifically right outside my back door, but is presenting a fire danger?
I can talk about that a little bit. Unfortunately, this year with COVID, the amount of fire crews that are available, even just for the large wildfires across the state of California, are minimal. They shut down a lot of the camps. So there's not really that many, as we call the probationary crews, the con crews, available to do that kind of work. I don't know if the TPW people are still on or not, but I know they've used them in the past to work on the roadsides, clearing vegetation. And I don't know if that's something that they have the ability to do. But it also kind of, I mean, the property it belongs to somebody. So there is a responsible party for the property. It just takes maybe a little bit of work to find out who owns the property and get in contact with them.
Thank you.
Johannes, did you want to add anything about the supervised adult crews?
Sure, we can use, TPW has used them, and likewise the Sonoma County Youth Ecology Corps to work within the road right-of-way, and we've been very happy and successful with them. Floodways are typically a function of either Sonoma County Water Agency or private parties. And in our experience, when there is a tree that falls within a creek and it's close to the right-of-way where we are concerned about possibly flooding or affecting a bridge, we really have difficulty with the regulating agencies because they like the trees to be there. They promote habitat, and we're not allowed to get them out. So some of the trees near the creeks, we can't touch them. That's been our experience. But outside of the creeks and within the road right-of-way, we remove everything that we can.
And one thing that I want to mention, and you know, while Captain Franceschi is totally correct, and we have struggled with COVID, with having less access to those resources, we actually do have a potential opportunity coming up, which is that the probation camp near Schoen Farm is actually winding down in its current form of a probation camp. And we expect that there won't actually be any occupants of the probation camp probably by early next year. And so we're having conversations around, could that be, you know, what Black Mountain used to be, and be sort of a conservation camp where we actually train folks to do vegetation management and forestry. And then how can we partner with local businesses and, you know, registered professional foresters to make sure that there are jobs for folks at the other end of the line. The county did set aside $25 million of PG&E settlement funds specifically for vegetation management, and we might yet add more to that pot. And so that could also provide resources for property owners who kind of struggle to maintain their properties on their own. Captain Franceschi, do you have anything else that you want to add? And then it looks like Vesta has a question.
Just quickly, I'll talk about community groups. We can take Vesta's question real quick though.
Actually, it wasn't about the community groups. I was wondering, like, you have COPE, which is the citizens, I can't remember what it stands for. In Lucy's neighborhood, they use Map Your Neighborhood, and Skip Gerald's from the Forestville program has been very helpful. Do you have any information in the Forestville district on how many groups there are, since the groups are really quite small? Forestville does not have a fire safe Sonoma group. That's more complicated. We had Rebecca McIntyre talk to us about that recently. It's more like a nonprofit organization and much more complicated than a Map Your Neighborhood. Do you as a fire department have known groups, and how many do you think there are in Forestville, in the Forestville area that you protect?
Yeah, we do have quite a few actually. There's one on, it's called the West Side Group, the McPeak Group. I believe there's one on Anderson Road as well, maybe the Orchard Russell neighborhood. the one on Champs. So there are quite a few of them. And I mean, that's what we ask. We ask for the communities to get together, a core group of neighbors that are willing to participate, and kind of pick out what group works or what program works best with your group. I can go right into the ones that I was going to talk about. The COPE group, which is citizens organized to prepare for emergencies. And they're built upon the concept of neighbor helping neighbor, engaging in community preparedness. That's what I think most of our groups in Forestville, we classify them as a COPE group. Map Your Neighborhood is another group. And like you said, Skip has been very good at that. And it kind of guides neighbors through simple steps to prepare for an emergency, kind of guidelines set out for what they should look for, about your go bag and having gas shut off wrenches and those kind of things. Listos is another one. It's a disaster preparedness program that's designed to meet the needs of Spanish speaking communities, and engage neighbors and communities in getting ready together. I think this program just started in the county. I think there's 25 instructors currently certified countywide. So when you establish your neighborhood group, we like to suggest making like a block captain or like a group captain of a certain area, to kind of have them kind of lead the group of those close neighbors, so everyone can report to one person, and then they can all the group leaders can meet to each other. We don't currently have this in Forestville, but the Cert program, the community emergency response teams. I know there are some, I think there might be one in Guerneville. I don't know if they're still active or not. But if there's enough community interest, that might be something we can look into doing. And lastly, the Sonoma CART, which is a community animal response team, and they formed up after 2017, all those fires. And they're a nonprofit organization that works with local law enforcement agencies to aid in animal evacuations, transports, sheltering, and reuniting them with their owners after the fact. Are there any questions about COPE groups?
Do you have the information at the fire station?
We don't have any like written literature about it. If you guys would like to learn more about it, we can definitely meet and talk about what we can provide to your COPE group.
Do you have one that you prefer to use?
No, I mean, I see mostly the COPE groups, or what it's kind of the neighbor helping neighbor, because when it comes down to it, I mean, if there's a large scale fire in our community right here in Forestville, the likelihood of the fire department being able to meet up at that point is going to be slim to none. And oftentimes we're calling it mutual aid. So there's going to be people from all over the state of California coming in, and they're not going to be really familiar with the different groups. So we like to lean on the neighbors to help each other in this time.
Captain Franceschi, I have on Facebook a few questions that I think are directed to you, but they're not related to COPE groups. Is it fine if we jump right into those?
Yeah, that's fine.
So Jamie Tolliver Stapleton is asking, do you support or suggest firefighting pumps and hoses for those of us with a pool?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, if you're going to have them set up for us to use, that's great. We definitely will use them if we are there and we do need it. I mean, if there's an evacuation order, we're not going to suggest leaving or having you stay in your home. We're going to want you to leave and get out of the community while you're safe.
Okay, and then the other question is, Hilla Posner just had a question about the chipper program and how successful it is. Is there any way people can get reimbursed if they do it themselves or borrow a chipper? He sees a lot of down trees that are a fire hazard.
Yeah, the chipper program is a great resource that's provided by the county. The problem with it is there's so many people in the county that need to use it that as soon as it opens up, when you register and get your reservations, I mean, they're booked out for months at a time. And I don't know, maybe what Supervisor Hopkins was talking about, that money, that 25 million that was set aside, if there's any talk of maybe getting another chipper program or another chipper for the program, or anything like that. And I don't think, no reimbursements that I know of as far as renting your own chipper and using it.
Thank you.
All right, and I apologize, but we're going to do a little bit of a switch in the agenda. I know that our Regional Parks Director, Bert Whitaker, and TPW Director, Johannes, do have another meeting to get to. And so I'm hoping that we can kind of bump the next one, their other agenda item up, which is to talk a little bit about some of the mitigation efforts to address the summertime crunch of tourism that we've been experiencing in the Forestville area. And I also want to acknowledge Elise Van Dyne, who has just been a champion for this work and really working very closely with the departments to address this. So I don't know if I want to hand it over to Elise or Bert, but you know, if you want to jump in and get it going.
Just to give an overview of this, what we've been working on is a variety of different programs to help alleviate the concerns around the river. And so Bert, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, Bert Whitaker, Regional Parks, and certainly this summer on the river was unlike anything we could have imagined, between COVID, wildfire, great weather, and interestingly enough, a low flow regime through Sonoma water on the river, and actually, you know, water quality that stayed suitable for swimming without any health department postings. But everyone certainly living near the river this year saw something, you know, saw use levels that really ratcheted up to a whole new level. And just to kind of think about the things that we did, and we, you know, regional parks, obviously with Steelhead Beach, Forestville River access, Sunset Beach, you know, saw a consistent trend with really, honestly, weekends that were just so far beyond the capacity of the existing public parking lots, and tried, you know, and weekdays that felt like weekends in most instances throughout the summer. And not a huge surprise as we're living in the pandemic, and outdoor activities is really, you know, what folks were able to do this summer to keep themselves healthy and get some time with family and friends. You know, we tried a lot of things last year, and some of them worked okay. Some of them didn't work all that well, and we've learned a lot. Just to highlight a few of them, we played around with partial closure of parking lots, trying to limit access and minimize overcrowding. And what we found was a pretty immediate effect of those cars flowing into the neighborhoods. We changed the way we operate some of Steelhead Beach with drop-off zones. So essentially people could drop off their equipment, and the folks in their car with them, and they would then proceed to go and drive and find another parking location other than the park. And that was okay. It solved some of the problems with crowds and large numbers of folks trying to cross River Road, but it was still a less than ideal situation on many days. You know, even on the beaches, many days they were so crowded that folks wanting to access it for boating were not able to safely get through and distance themselves from others. And we evolved basically these boat access chutes at a couple of locations so the public would actually create a corridor for people to efficiently get on and off the river. And we started this Recreate Responsibly campaign. And we do think it helped somewhat with educating visitors on being safe and removing their trash and being respectful. But honestly, the number of visitors that came, it exceeded, I think, any benefits we saw from individual actions out there. So as we go into next summer and thinking about 2021, you know, we're planning for a second summer of COVID at this point, and figuring that, you know, outdoor activities and the Russian River, certainly our Sonoma coast, they are significant regional destinations, and I don't see a trend that's going to change. Fortunately, let's keep our fingers crossed. One of the major things on the regional park side that was a challenge last year was with the COVID shutdown and the very strict shelter in order thing. Regional parks really didn't have a lot of resources until really late July, early August to be out there educating folks, and at least trying our best to have folks come in with the appropriate behaviors and respect for the river while they're out there recreating. We see a strong need to increase our game with social media and pushing things out, not just to Sonoma County residents, but really working with the county's communications resources as well as regional parks, to really message within the greater San Francisco Bay Area, in the East Bay, on how to come to the river, how to recreate there, when the times are appropriate, and better understand the program we also launched this summer was on our Instagram feeds of letting, you know, pushing out when these parking lots have filled. We saw some days where that seemed to help. Some days where honestly, it didn't show that much of a difference. But we've learned with these types of tactics in managing facilities, it's got to be consistent year over year and really get that messaging out that before folks leave their home and travel up to 60 to 100 miles to get here, that to know if the facility is going to be available for them. Certainly, I would love to think we're heading closer to a world where we can make larger investments in sustaining the uses along the river with things like shuttle services and offsite parking lots. But realistically, with where we're at with the pandemic right now and the information we have today around continual need to distance ourselves and some challenges with the scale of the public transportation to be necessary, we're not really looking that aggressively at trying to launch a new program like that this summer, where we were really thinking about that this summer, starting to move that direction. So that's kind of the highlight. And certainly we also implemented the road signs along Mirabelle and River Road. Once again, I think it has some helpful benefits. But once again, once folks have made a decision to travel here, certainly from a distance, more than 20 minutes or so, the likelihood of them turning around, we really saw them more, going into adjacent neighborhoods or areas to find a place to park and access the river. So it's a very, very tough challenge. And in the greater scheme of things, we've got some better long-term trajectories on working very closely with tourism and increasing the number of facilities and access points. But in the short term, would love to hear any suggestions the community has as well too, of things they saw or witnessed, to make sure that our information is correct as we start planning for 2021. And like I said, we've learned a lot, but I have a feeling we're going to continue to learn more as these facilities will continue to be quite popular in the years ahead.
Thank you so much, Bert. And, I know that it's been a challenging and frustrating situation for the community, but I also just want to acknowledge how responsive you and your department has been. We're not perfect. We're constantly trying to improve. This was an unprecedented situation with an unprecedented level of visitorship, but I know that the parks rangers and that regional park staff has been very committed to trying to address this and working very closely with Elise in our office to make some meaningful improvements. One thing I also want to mention that I know Elise has been working on is that we've been in conversations with Senator Mike McGuire's office regarding actually trying to get signage on Highway 101. This is challenging, right? Because it's above our pay grade in local government. This is a Caltrans issue. This is a state issue. But what I've heard is that in Marin, where they now have signs saying, when the beaches are full, and signs about, near woods and other things, that's actually been very effective for crowd control. And so, we are working to see if we can get actual programmable signs on Highway 101 that could tell us when the coastal beaches and when the river beaches are full, to try to, discourage visitors at those extremely popular times. So we are working on that. Elise, do you have anything else that you want to add?
Yes, I was on the conversation about those signs today, so hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll get there. The other thing that we're working on, your Lower Russian River MAC and your Coast MAC are working on a residential parking permit program. We don't know if this is going to be the answer or not, but right now we're working on researching whether or not we can put such a program in, what kind of cost that would be, how effective that would be. And so if your neighborhood would be interested in participating in talking about a residential parking permit program, let me know. Just email us at district5@sonoma-county.org. And Johannes, do you have anything to add to this topic?
Thank you, Elise. We have been working with Bert and Supervisor Hopkins on traffic and on how to reduce the parking issues that we have. We have established some parking prohibition areas. We have set up some signs, changeable message signs as well. We have complaints about the trash. We finally adopted or created the Adopt a Road program. So we have tackled a lot of issues. I think I was out with Carol with Russian River about a month ago, and we were cleaning up the river. And I can tell you that I cleaned mostly toilet paper, poop, and beer. That's what we picked up from the river. And we're trying to work on education campaigns. I think we need to do better when we set up our resources and try to educate people on, if you come to the river, please bring a bag so you can poop in the bag rather than dumping all near the neighborhoods. We're getting a lot of complaints on that, and we're trying to address that. We have signage that we're ready to put next year when it comes to that issue. I'm thinking about bringing an item to the board under the PG&E settlement to ask for at least a couple of more CMSs, Supervisor Hopkins, the changeable message signs, where we can install them everywhere we want within the county. I've talked to the director of Caltrans, and he has told me that he will issue a permit within days from when we want to put him in to discourage visitors to come to Sonoma County. So we're trying everything that we can, and we've continued to do that. We've even had some in Villa Grande. We put some barricades on temporary construction, quotation marks. So we block neighborhoods so people don't park and visit that way. So we're trying everything we can, and we're open to ideas on anything we can do to help out the residents of Sonoma be safe from COVID and from the parking increases that we're seeing.
Thank you so much, Johannes. And again, I really appreciate your responsiveness and your willingness to meet with constituents and go out there and, survey the areas. And I also want to acknowledge that we're, sometimes constrained in the world of local government with what we can and can't do. And so, Johannes actually has to make a legal justification, for instance, if he's going to create a no parking zone, that meets sort of certain criteria. And so he has been as creative as he possibly can, but does have some constraints with respect to, where we can create some of these zones. So thank you so much for your responsiveness. And also just a plea to anyone who watching this, if you ever see one of the roads crews guys working on the side of the road, just tell them thank you. Because they really have just been phenomenal through the floods and the fires. They're out there making sure that the roads are safe, trying to clear things. And so there's a great department, and we're really grateful for your service. Elise, anything to add, or do we have any questions that we have of Johannes and Bert before they have to jump off?
We have about 10 different suggestions, and they're all really great suggestions. I think, though, that what we found is that we've had multiple town halls on this, and we can go on for an hour, but we really do have a kind of a packed agenda. So I would just like to let people know that we're going to take these suggestions about poop bags and about signage and things like that and deliver them all to Johannes and Bert, and we will keep working on them. And if you can, keep subscribing to Supervisor Hopkins' newsletter so that you can get the updates of what we're doing all the time.
Yeah, and one thing that I do want to, a question that I think is a great one, which is what is going to constitute the 101 signs to say it's full? Will it be when Steelhead is full? We're just in the very preliminary phases of this. And so this is the kind of thing that we would love to get feedback from the community and have conversations with, regional parks and Caltrans and TPW to determine all of those criteria. So we haven't yet gotten there, but we're really committed to trying to reduce the impacts going forward. Anything else that we haven't covered, Johannes or Bert, before I know you've got to jump off? Oh, and it looks like Lucy might have a question, but Bert?
Actually, I saw the remark here on two things, on dog poop bags for dog walkers around the beach areas. And yes, that's a great suggestion. We have some, but there certainly could be more. And I neglected to mention, definitely additional restroom facilities on the parks properties is certainly something that we are planning for next year, based on with the higher levels of use of where we can situate those and get more compliance with folks especially coming down the river, stopping in the appropriate locations.
Yeah, and actually I just had a brief conversation with Bert that was really exciting. The Regional Water Board, which is mostly known to those of us in the Lower Russian River as those folks who are going to come after us for our septics, but they actually in this instance have some funding available to do some positive projects. And so one of the first projects that we're looking to do is actually to install more restrooms throughout the Russian River watershed. And Bert is going to take the lead role there. And then also providing the signage, because I think that sometimes folks are floating down the river. They might not know that they're, close by a restroom. And so trying to make sure that they have the tools they need to access the restroom is going to be really critical. And I can't wait to work with you, Bert, on that project. But Lucy, I know you had a question, and we'll probably hop off and let Bert and Johannes go and hop onto the next presentation after you, Lucy.
Thank you. I had to say to Bert that the reason that seeing that boardwalk going in the downtown to connect the West County Trail is phenomenal after 5 years or so. That little park would not exist if it had not been for the Parks Department willingness to do that in-kind donation. That's why that park is there. It's fabulous. And I just had to publicly say thank you for making that happen.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you both so much. And I know that you've got to get off to your next meetings. And then Elise, I've messed up the agenda. So what's up next? Is it Michael with FPA? Is that where we're going?
Michael with FPA.
Well,
and Johannes, do you have anything before you say goodbye?
I'm good. Thank you, Supervisor Hopkins.
And we're putting
Thank you so much for participating. I appreciate it.
We're putting the link to the newsletter in the chat box.
Okay, well, I guess I'll take off then. Thank you very much, Linda, for giving me the opportunity here. I'm going to give a brief overview of the park and kind of an update status before I get in there, though I certainly echo what Lucy said about the regional parks and Burt Whitaker. I've actually, they took a little bit of my thunder, both in the thank you and in the explanation of that, but I'm going to try a screen share here for you and give you some visuals on that. And this, in fact, is kind of sets the scene. This is what the park looked like before it was a park. This was right after we acquired the property in 2013. It's mostly grassland and peppered with our beautiful oaks. And there's been, although a lot of bumps in the development of the design over the years since 2013, we do have some very good progress. And this is a shot taken of that very trail that goes through the southern end of the park. And over here is pretty much, I'll show you a shot of it, but this is where the Lucy was talking about with the construction of the elevated walkway that goes over the wetlands. That was one of those bumps. Probably before I get there, though, I don't want to forget to thank a variety of people. Our webmaster, Janet Zagoria, who put this up for me. By the way, this entire presentation, if anybody is riveted and wants to review it, it can be found on our website, 95436.org. So if you know anyone who wanted to attend but couldn't, it's there for them. And also the photography is courtesy of another one of our great volunteers, Patty Brunell, and thank her so much. And just real briefly, I'd like to run through the very small staff we have in the Forestville Planning Association, our board of directors. Lucy Hardcastle, whose picture you've got on your screen most likely, is one of those. Joni Bleckel, no particular order here. Ian Burnett, Wayne Ebb, Ken Smith, Tim Surgeon is our treasurer, and Monique Cherie Pierre is our secretary. And I'm very appreciative for all of those people pitching in. So I'm going to roll through. Let's see, somehow I got the wrong order here. Well, no, it isn't the wrong order. This is the sign at the current trailhead, which is on the northwest part of the park property. And that, of course, was my introduction to thank Bert, but that's already been done. And it's really, really, it has made the park just pop downtown, and we're really delighted for it. I promised you a picture of the construction that Bert was talking about, and Lucy, this is it. They're going to be an elevated walkway over those wetlands, and it was delayed, as Bert said, because there were the water there took one heck of a long time to dry out. This project is scheduled to be finished next month. I just talked to Ken Tam, the project manager, and he gave me December 2020. So I'm putting my trust in him. We've got some other upgrades too. We put benches throughout the park. We actually have two brand new benches here, solid redwood that we had crafted by our local Forestville probation camp. And another one of our volunteers, Mr. Doug Wood, was very instrumental in leveling this out, grading it, and helping us place those picnic tables. So we're delighted for that. There's a lot more to the design that we have in place that we had to change because of the wetlands declaration. If you are interested in it, it is mapped here on the display board that you'll find in the park. I've also got it right here for you. And just to mention a couple of the additional elements of this design, we do have a paved parking lot, a gathering area that's elongated that will go down. This brown ellipse is a potential stage. It will actually this design has been updated slightly, and that stage will go over here pretty much between these two trees, and you will have an amphitheater type of setting up here to enjoy. Sidewalks that I mentioned to Linda Hopkins earlier that I would love to see funded because it's right along Highway 116. It is a pedestrian hazard there with cars pulling in and out with no specific ingress or egress points. And maybe to alleviate some of the Russian River poop problem, we have in phase 2 a restroom plan, but that may or may not happen depending on funding. So that's pretty much it for the park update. I can take any specific questions you have later, but a couple more comments. First, I want to emphasize that this is a community park managed by a very small staff of volunteers with a very small budget. But we are so very delighted, over the moon really, to be able to have acquired this with the help of Ag and Open Space and regional parks, and to provide a place of peace and tranquility for the community in perpetuity. And I hope perhaps that you've been able to enjoy the farmers market that was here just last season and previous seasons, but I'd like to give a special shout out to Mary Rand, the manager of that farmers market this year, who through Herculean efforts, she was able to get through the pandemic problems and orchestrated that great gathering spot for us. So it's there for all of us to enjoy, and I invite everybody to help us keep it safe and clean for everybody. And finally, although we are progressing that design through the county permit process and expect to get that sometime early next year, I hope, approved as a use permit, but all of those great plans are contingent strictly on our ability to raise funds throughout the community to execute them. And so eventually we'll ask all those people who value this park and the greater Forestville community to pitch in what they can. And in the meantime, we all hope to see you on the trail or at one of these picnic tables, or just enjoying a stroll through the oak filtered sunshine. And I guess I could also say I hope through the oak filtered rain pretty soon too. So that's all I have. I could take questions if there are any. And if not, I'd turn it over to Jacque Brazieal, who will talk to us about the skate park, skate spot. So any questions? Must have been a perfect presentation, no questions. So
I am scanning in the chat, and I don't know if Leo, if you have an eye on Facebook.
Let me see here, chat.
I don't see any.
Most of what I'm seeing on Facebook relates to people's frustration with poop near the river. So I just want to acknowledge that, you know, it's a big concern and that people are frustrated, but I don't see anything specific to this right now. I'll do one more scroll through.
Okay.
Oh, I do see one question from Scott, who asks, so we're waiting for the county permit, and then once approved, we'll have a fundraising campaign. That's the question for Michael.
That is indeed the plan. We can't really march out and do fundraising with any efficacy at all unless we know exactly what we're installing and how much it's going to cost. And so the steps are get the use permit granted so we know the design is good with the county and with Ag and Open Space. Then we will go out and do fundraising with specific targets of, you know, for example, as you said, Linda, how much is that sidewalk going to cost? We need to know that before we can go to you for the quarry funds, if there are any there available. So we'll do that. We'll talk about the gathering space. We'll talk about the stage, etc. And I will reiterate that the restroom is, we have it currently, hopefully it will be agreed to by the Board of Zoning Adjustments, but it will be in a phase 2 development, because that is probably the single most expensive item that we would have in the park. And we don't know where the fundraising is going to stand at the end. So it possibly will be there for the community, and it would be a great service for the community. But if not, we're going to have to go to Plan B with some upgraded porta potties or something. So.
Well, I will say that I really look forward to that capital campaign and seeing what we can do on the county side of things to support that. And I know we work to, secure waivers for the permitting fees and others. So we're very committed to this project, and we'll do anything that we can on the local government side. Anyone else see any questions that I am missing? I'm scanning the Q&A, I'm scanning the chat, and I'm not seeing anything else. All right. Well, thank you so much for that great picture, Michael. And I feel like it was soothing just to see the beautiful images of the park there up on the screen. Really, really lovely.
Very nice. Thank you.
So with that, I think we're handing it over to Jackie for an update on her fantastic work that she has been doing on the skate spot.
Thank you. And that was a great segue. And that's an inspiration to, your park is an inspiration to the skate spot. So thank you, Michael. Hello, everyone. My name is Jacque Brazieal, and I'm the president of Forestville Skate Spot. And thank you, Supervisor Hopkins and Elise and Jason and Leo for including me in this presentation and allowing me to give an update on the skate spot. So let me give you a background because many of you might not know about this project. The Forestville Skate Spot was started by my son 6 years ago. While he was a sophomore at El Molino. He did it as his senior project. He's a skateboarder, and he wanted a local safe place to connect with his friends and to skateboard and to just have fun and be active. So the Forestville Youth Park initially served as our fiscal sponsor and helped get our fundraising going. And I give a huge shout out to the Forestville Youth Park because without them, we could not be as far as we are today. So they really were instrumental in getting this project off the ground for everybody. So now we're our own nonprofit organization. We're all volunteer, very small grassroots, just getting started. But this gives us the ability to also continue fundraising efforts. So for the past 5 years, we've been building community support and fundraising. And I just want to thank every person out there who has joined in our fun run, which we've done 3 of them. They were great, really fun. And also to people who have dropped coins or dollar bills in those penny cans that you might have seen in town merchants, because all those pennies do add up. So we really appreciate your generosity and thanks for contributing to that. So let me move into currently what we're doing. Right now, we're working with the county on the site location. We're eyeing a portion of the parcel that's on Packing House and Forestville Street, and that's actually where the bypass was intended to go. So that was my understanding that that's still available. It's a great location for the park because it's close to Forestville School, it's close to downtown, it's close to the West County Trail, it's close to the Pajaro houses, and close to community. And believe me, we want our skate park visible. We want our skate park to be seen by the community. We don't want to hide a skate park away in a corner. It needs to be accessible to everybody. So that's the site we have been working with. The property's owned by Sonoma County Transportation and Public Works. So Johannes has been engaged in conversation with us on this project, which has been wonderful. And it is an important, necessary work yard for West County. So it's a big parcel, but we just need a small portion of it. So we're hoping that's the site. But right now, the county's going through a rezoning project with parcels. That also includes environmental review and CEQA process. So we hope to know in January at the latest whether or not that site is going to work for us or be a possibility. So if the site is deemed appropriate, then of course we'll move forward and we'll get going on the next steps. If the site doesn't work, then we're kind of back to the drawing board. And as you can imagine, finding a location for a skate park in a community is the hardest part of a project like this. So fingers crossed that that site works, but we will know maybe in January, hopefully. So now just from our humble grassroots efforts, an all volunteer organization, we've come to a point where we do need partners, because right now we're just a small handful of board members and youth. So we need partners in order to be able to fundraise on the larger level, on the state level, even on the county level. So we can get grants and we can get money to build this skate park, which is just under $1 million. We did apply to the state grant, Prop 68 grant last year, but we weren't able to qualify because we didn't have partners. So if there are any businesses or any agencies, any individuals out there who want to be involved in this project, please get in touch with me. Or if you have any ideas of alternative sites in case this site does not work out, please get in touch with me. You can email me at forestvilleskatespot@gmail.com and we can talk. But I'm wondering also, maybe that $1 million that was going to the bypass, that's not going to go there, can maybe come our way a little bit too. But we'll have to just see how everything goes. We're just at the very beginning stages of this park process. But now the fun part. Let me tell you about the design, because that's the fun part. We've gotten great design suggestions from both non-skateboarders and skateboarders. When we were at the Forestville Farmers Market, we had a booth of a few of the weekends or the Tuesdays, and people came by and gave some great suggestions. Thanks everybody who did that. I want to just share the screen here if I can do this. Can you guys see that? Can you all see the screen?
No, we can't see it.
Okay, let me try that again.
You did it.
Okay, all right. So thank you. So this was our whiteboard, and these were some of the suggestions that people had for our skate spot ideas. One that was really awesome is the second one down. This was from a young girl who's a newer skateboarder, and she made sure that we're going to have an area for beginner skaters, which is very important, of course, for safety and for learning and for encouraging the sport. So we will definitely have a spot for beginner skaters. The other one that I really liked is, 5 down, the concrete tree on the side for skateboarders to grind or jump over. So what's cool about Skatepark Designs is they're very local to the area, and people like to incorporate some unique thing that says it's Forestville. So the idea was to have some kind of redwood tree on its side that is a concrete but looks like redwood tree, and then the skateboarders can jump over it. So fun things like that people were suggesting, which was really great. And then also art mural and art wall, restrooms, of course, shade area is going to be really important. So that is part of the ideas that we're building and getting the community involved in the design. So if you didn't get a chance and you want to submit a skate park design idea, please email us at forestvilleskatespot@gmail.com. I've gotten several through the email as well, but please feel free to chime in. We've been diligently following best practices guide. We don't have that book here. It's our best practice guide is from the Public Skate Park Development Guide, which is by Peter Whitley and Skaters for Public Skate Parks and the Tony Hawk Foundation. So that book is the Bible for designing skate parks. A lot of algorithms of how you figure out how big your skate park should be, safety issues, and even how to get community involvement. So we've been following that as our best practice. And today's skate park designs are much more inclusive. They include skateboards, they include scooters, BMXs, and even wheelchairs. It's a place for kids, for families, for friends, for communities to gather and have fun. It's a great equalizer. Everybody at the skate park is there to skateboard and have fun, and that's it. Multiple generations participate in skate parks as well, which is cool because they've been around a long time. So you have kids skating with their parents or their guardians, and also grandparents now, because grandparents have been skating too. It's a popular sport, and it's even going to be in the next Olympics when we have the next Olympics. So it's the new contemporary park of our time, and our youth need something like that in our town. So design, we're imagining, is a 3/4 acre park. A quarter of it will be concrete, but the rest is going to include walkways, benches, picnic tables, shade structure, landscaping, bathrooms, water bottle filling station, and parking. I mean, we might as well ask for the moon, right? But we will work with the skate park design and build company, so who specializes in building skate parks specifically, because that approach is the safest. It's the best for liability. It's environmentally friendly. They're used to working with wetlands and drainage and issues like that. And it's also helpful for funding support when you work with specifically a skate park design and build company. So that's our hope. And some of you might have maybe an outdated idea of what skate parks look like. So I want to just show you a few ideas of what current skate park designs are. Can you guys see this from New Line Skate Parks? So this is an excellent example of how the community is drawn to a space, can be involved, can watch, or can skateboard, ride a scooter, ride a BMX bike, and just hang out and have a good time and get some fresh air and exercise. This is another one that you can see it incorporates the landscape, and it's really a beautiful, peaceful place to be. And then the next one I want to show you, this is another nice one that, again, incorporates the landscape. It's thoughtful about environmental setup and design, and also is welcoming to the community. So those are the things I wanted to share with you. Okay. Now, I don't know if we can do this or not, but I have a student. We have the Forestville Skate Spot has a youth advocate. He's an El Molino senior, and he would love to chime in. I don't know if we can unmute his mic, or his name is Eli Begley. Do we know how to do that? How to invite him in?
You may be able to do that. Let me see.
Okay.
Can you repeat his name again?
Yeah, it's Eli Begley, and it's Begley.
I think I'm in.
Eli, yay! So
Hi,
this is Eli, and he's our student advocate from El Molino High School. Take it away, Eli.
I'd like to give you guys a little speech, if that's okay. So I've lived right in downtown Forestville for my whole life. I picked up riding boards a couple years ago and realized that skating is so much fun that it is more than a hobby or pastime, but is a life changer. Especially with the pandemic and quarantine, skating is therapy, and some people can only really express themselves through it. Having a skate spot in Forestville will only attract new skaters to start in a better setting than some pebbly roads we have to offer. Not everyone has a car to drive to Sebastopol or Monterey just to ride in a place where you are completely permitted to skate. A skate spot will benefit the community in so many different ways, giving the opportunity for people to relax and focus on something that makes them a little happier. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks a lot, Eli. Appreciate your input on that. Very important. So we do have the youth in the community very involved in the design aspect and participating as well. Just to conclude, obviously building a skate park takes a lot of time, coordination, patience, and money. But it's not an unrealistic pie in the sky prospect. Skate parks get built all the time. Mostly it takes heart and knowing the bigger importance that this park will serve to our youth, our families, and our community. We've all seen firsthand during the pandemic the importance of parks. So if you'd like to be more closely involved, please reach out to me. We've gotten great input from the youth and the skateboarders. We could really use more input from planners, from designers, and from grant writers. But anyone, get in touch with me if you want to be involved. We can always use something good to focus our attention on these days. This project is so rewarding and so good for the spirit. So get in touch. And yeah, thank you very much. Thanks, Supervisor Hopkins and Leo and Elise and Jason as well. Any questions?
I just want to say thank you so much, Eli, for sharing your thoughts. And also, Jacque, you are one of my favorite people. I feel like whenever we have a conversation, it just lifts my spirits because you have been such a diehard advocate for this project. And I know that it's been years and I know that we're making slow progress, but we are making progress. And I'm so grateful for your community passion and advocacy and willingness to stick to it. So thank you. Let's check in on our questions. Leo, do you see anything? Anyone see it? We'll all cover our bases.
You know, through the Q&A in Zoom, somebody was asking about the total cost of the skate park and how much has been fundraised. If you may have already addressed the first part, but if you want to reiterate that and let folks know.
Yeah, definitely. So the total cost is, our budget was under $1 million for that list that I read off. So, but it's about, $1 million for all that. We have raised $16,000 so far. And I'm telling you, this is from fun runs, penny cans, and some t-shirts. So we have a long way to go, but that's why I want to just reiterate, we're not an agency. We just got our nonprofit status. We're very, very new and beginning in the fundraising stages. And as you can see from the FPA and what that takes to build a park in an unincorporated area, we can't just go to the mayor and say, hey, build us a park. It's a big project working with the county. So we're getting there. COVID definitely put a little damper on fundraisers, but we're hoping to have like a skateboard contest and reach out that way as well more to the skaters. Yeah, thanks for that question.
Sure. And on Facebook, it's been mostly just positive support. There was one question or suggestion saying, as an alternative site, El Molino. So, but before we get to those backup options, I think, the county, Jacque, I've really loved working with you. We've been kind of keeping at Permit Sonoma to stay updated. And basically this is part of their larger countywide effort to look at county properties and doing environmental review and then potential rezoning for housing purposes. And so the idea is that they're also going to be doing that environmental review, which will let us know which parcels could work for this. And then that will also be informative for us as we look at housing potentially linked to the same project sites. So it's really exciting, and I really want to commend you for your diligence at keeping this going forward. And I do believe that the Planning Commission will hear their environmental review in November, hear the zoning proposals in January, so that it can go to the board soon after that and we can keep it moving forward.
I do see a question, which is, Jacque, is there a website?
There is, ForestvilleSkatespot.com. Yeah, and skate spot is a skate spot is typically a smaller space to skate. And honestly, to disclose, we initially called it that because people sometimes get a little nervous about a skate park and they picture a huge concrete swimming pool. And so the visual of just a more quaint space that would fit our community is the idea behind that. ForestvilleSkatespot.com.
Great. And I actually have a question for Vesta. True or false? Didn't your granddaughter win one of the fun runs that was hosted in support of the skate spot? Isn't that true?
Yeah, she did. And they constantly go to skate parks. They go to Healdsburg and to Monterey consistently. It'd be lovely to have one right here in Forestville.
Yeah, it would make our town better for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, for these kids. Yeah, she's adorable. That was great.
Jackie, one last question in the Q&A from Ian. He's asking, would it be cheaper if it was in the youth park? And I know you've talked to the youth park folks before, so if you want to address that.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. It's not a possibility. We had hoped to get some property that was, just close to the youth park as well, but that it's not an option right now. I mean, we never know what happens. These projects just kind of become their own thing. So you never know, but right now the youth park is not a space for the skate spot. Unless, someone changes their mind. Anything else?
Unless we have any other questions, I think it's time to turn it over to Elise to bring it home with our awesome MAC reps. And for those, Elise, you're on mute. And for those of you who don't speak government quite as fluently as we do, we sort of just go with the acronyms really quickly. But as a reminder, MAC is your Municipal Advisory Council. And so the representatives who serve Forestville, that's what we're going to be talking about.
First of all, I'd like to go back in time a little bit because this meeting has been rescheduled so many times. I want to introduce you to your new alternate who was appointed, I believe, in July, Lisa Namenson. She's on here. Lisa, can we see you? You say hello? Can you unmute and say hello?
Hi, everyone. It's nice to be here.
So your current Forestville Municipal Advisory Council members are Lucy Hardcastle and Vesta Copestakes, and Lisa is our alternate. Our alternates have been doing a lot of great work this year. I know that Lisa's part of the residential parking permit research ad hoc, and we're also working together on broadband access as well, because Lisa has such a great background in telecommunications. But you'll get to hear a lot more about Lisa very, very shortly, because we are coming up to the municipal, we go right from her appointment into the elections or nominations every 2 years, or every year as it will be now. Linda Hopkins, Supervisor Hopkins, has the capacity to reappoint and our new Municipal Advisory Council. And so we're in the election process right now for who the river community would like to have. And our elections will open up in mid-November. Again, get Linda's newsletter. You'll get a lot more information about that, and follow it as well on Facebook. So we have, let me pull up the representatives. So out of Forestville, Lucy Hardcastle is unfortunately leaving us. I understand she's moving, or do you want to say anything, Lucy, about your next steps briefly?
Thank you. Very briefly. I thought that I was going to need to move. Michael Franceschi, who talked to us earlier, when my husband took a dive and ended up in the ICU, and he was one of the guys that came and he recommended that we get out of a 2-story house. So when my husband came home from the hospital, we decided it was time to downsize. So I didn't think I'd be able to find a place in Forestville, and I did this long extended goodbye in the Forestville column, and it turns out like briefly thereafter we found a place to rent in Forestville. So I'm not leaving after all.
Oh, well, that's exciting news for all of us.
We thought we were, and it's good to have other people have an opportunity. And thank you for the opportunity, Elise, working with you and with Linda to do a little bit with the Municipal Advisory Council. I learned so much from being on that council, and I encourage others to participate.
And, some of the things I talked a little bit about the ad hocs that Lisa has been on. Lucy has been instrumental in working on the vacation rental ad hoc committee. on the bylaws ad hoc committee. You know, she's been on so many, it's just hard to get them all. But you know, I just want you all to hear how many great subjects and topic areas the Municipal Advisory Council works on your behalf, and letting you know as well that Lisa Namenson put in, am I pronouncing that right, Lisa Namenson? That
it's actually Namenson, but Namenson works.
That thank you.
It's a hard one.
No, got her application for the space left open by Lucy, and we are reopening the opening applications for alternates, because we are going to have a space open since Lisa's going to be moving up. We're going to have a space open for an alternate. So if anyone is interested in participating as an alternate on the Municipal Advisory Council and you have any questions about it, please feel free to email me with any questions. And there's information about the Municipal Advisory Council on Supervisor Hopkins' website. And you can, you know, just Google River Municipal Advisory Council and you can find that information, as well as the application if you're interested in being an alternate. Alternates work on ad hoc committees and also step in whenever someone is not available to represent. So great work from all of you, Vesta and Lucy and Lisa, on the Municipal Advisory Council. We appreciate it so very, very much. And I look forward to getting more Forestvilleans participating in the Municipal Advisory Council and all the really great topics that we're covering. So if there are any questions about that, let me know. Otherwise, that is the extent of our agenda tonight. Let's have a minute to see if there are any questions about anything on the agenda that you'd like to see us cover at this point with the people that are left.
While you scan through, I do have an announcement, sort of late breaking news. No, not about the presidency, but I did just see that the district, the high school district, is having an emergency board meeting tomorrow that they just scheduled. So it's going to be happening tomorrow night, and it's going to discuss the possibility of exploring a new parcel tax to provide short-term bridge funding, just while other options are being explored for, you know, consolidation or broader unification with small districts and things. And there are a lot of us who are trying to cook up other creative solutions that don't always involve going back out to our local voters. But, you know, a 3-year sort of parcel tax could potentially bridge us into longer conversations. So I've been on the phone trying to get hold of the California Department of Education, pursuing different grant opportunities there as well. But just so you know, if you are interested, Friday, November 6th at 6:30 p.m., a West Sonoma County Unified High School District Board meeting to consider approval to explore a new parcel tax campaign.
Wonderful.
Anything else, Elise?
Anything else? Are there any other questions that you see, Jason or Leo?
I didn't see anything on Facebook. Vesta, did you have a question? Were you asking that for the whole meeting? If you are, go ahead and just ask it.
It's just did Sherry Owens apply to run for the election to represent Forestville?
She did. However, she is in, she lives across the street from me, and I initially was thinking, oh, Forestville, but we're actually in the Hacienda district.
Oh, so she can't run. Okay. Gotcha.
She is running in the Hacienda district.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much to all of our fantastic presenters, and also a huge debt of gratitude to our inaugural Municipal Advisory Council members, Lucy and Vesta. Thank you so much for your service. You have brought so much to the community in terms of policy developments and recommendations to the Board of Supervisors, and the work on the vacation rentals was outstanding. I mean, surveys of, you know, more than 700 people really informed the board conversation. So a lot of really fantastic work. And thank you all so much. Unless anyone has anything else for the good of the order, we will bid everyone farewell and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Elise.
Thanks, everyone. Lots of great
Thanks, everybody.
celebrating the community. I appreciate it.
Yeah, excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Jackie.
Uh-huh.